Radio Network.
IPMNation.com.
Kasich finally wins one in his home state, but Rubio loses in his home state and makes his exit. Where do we go from here? It looks like the chaos is only just beginning. It is Tuesday, March 15th, 2016, 11 p.m. in the Eastern Time Zone. From the Uptown Auto Repair Studio in Manchester, New Hampshire, Matt Connarton Unleashed starts right now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's about that time. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live on IPM Nation 2 and OTR FM. We are on IPM Nation 2 5 nights a week at 11 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, Tuesdays and Thursday nights, we also have the honor and privilege of being carried on OTR FM, which is the premium channel on the Ohm Times Radio Network. Also, don't forget the television edition of Unleashed, which you can see every week, every Wednesday, to be specific, at 2 p.m. Eastern on IPM Nation. This Wednesday, well, a couple things. So we'll get the housekeeping out of the way until because we have a lot to dig into tonight. So, of course, tomorrow, Wednesday, if you are listening to this live on Tuesday night, I will be at 1 p.m. Eastern. I will be joining John Hopwood on Ward 13 with John Hopwood, as I do most weeks. So you can watch that at 1 p.m. Eastern on IPM Nation. And then at 2 p.m., of course, is the television edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed. And if you don't get to see it live, we will have it up and available on YouTube, usually by about 10 p.m. on Wednesday night. And then you can just watch it whenever your heart desires. This week's, I don't know what we're doing on Ward 13 yet. John Hopwood just messaged me on Facebook and said that, he might end up reading short stories on the air because he's, I guess he's a little burnt out on the politics. But I'll help him get over that. I'm never burnt out on the politics. I think this is the most fun election ever. Frightening, but fun. But I can tell you, I have a great guest tomorrow for the television edition of Unleashed. Mike Gill will be joining me. Mike is, well, for one thing, he's a new member of the IPM Nation family. You know, we continue to add to our, just as Ohm Times Radio, they continue to add to their show roster. We're just one of many shows on there. Although, as far as I know, we're still the only mainly political show, which is a nice distinction. But at IPM Nation, we continue to add to our roster of programming as well. We've added quite a bit lately, and one of the newest members of the family is Michael Gill. He's the host of a show called State of Corruption, which you can hear live Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern on IPM Nation 1. So Mike is going to join me tomorrow on the television edition of Unleashed. He's never been on Unleashed. I have interviewed him before on another program that I do. He's been on Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades, a political show that I host with the Honorable Gary S. Hopper on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. You can see that on IPM Nation or listen. But Mike's been on that with us a couple of times, but he's never been on my show. So this will be very interesting. He is a very sort of controversial figure. He's really very, very interesting guy, very interesting background, but he's been doing a lot for several years now in terms of, trying to really crack down on corruption in government. And he's made a lot of enemies and it's just really, I'm really looking forward to talking to him one-on-one tomorrow on the show. So And like I said too, it's great to be carrying his show on IPM Nation. So Mike Gill, that is on this week's television edition of Unleashed, and we'll see what more. May have some more to announce regarding all of that. But by the way, also too, one more thing, and then we'll get on to the news of the day, because obviously another very, very big day. But if you missed it last night on the Monday night edition of the show, which is strictly on IPM Nation 2, the podcast is up on IPM Nation if you want to take a listen. I had a great guest, Ed Baker, who is an independent candidate from Oregon who is running for president. And, when I booked him, and he's been on IPM Nation before, actually, because he's been a guest, I think multiple times now, on Sean Carone's program, which we run on IPM Nation 2 on Friday nights, right before this show, actually, Awakening Liberty with Sean Carone. I know Ed's been on there. But let's see. Matt Nisanoff just sent me a message. Hey, Matt, just wanted to see if the 10 a.m. plan of Politipod is a go before promoting it. Yeah, Matt Nisanoff, sorry for the interruption, but he actually is the host of the number one most popular program on IPM Nation right now, Politipod, which is a great show for you political junkies, sort of a political satire thing. So I'm just going to respond to him and say, absolutely. There is a brand new episode of Politipod on IPM Nation right now. So if you haven't checked that out yet, you should. But so we had Ed Baker on, and obviously Ed Baker is a fringe candidate. He's not a Republican or a Democrat, so a lot of people haven't heard of him. But I thought it'd be interesting to have him on. I like interviewing all kinds of candidates, and I figured, when I booked him, I thought, we'll bring him on for, we'll chat for a little bit, maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll move on to other stuff, because there's always plenty to talk about. But I enjoyed our conversation so much, and there really was a lot of substance to it, that we ended up keeping him on for the entire hour plus. The show actually ran a little long. I think it was a total of 67 minutes. So that's how much I enjoyed my discussion with Ed. I don't necessarily agree with him on everything, certainly. We talked about areas of both agreement and disagreement. He's got an immigration plan as far as dealing with illegal immigration that I absolutely vehemently disagree with. But there was quite a few things I agreed with too. But yeah, we got into a lot of stuff, and it was very substantive. So obviously he has no chance of getting anywhere with his presidential campaign, being that he's not one of the members of the two major parties. I mean, look, if Marco Rubio can't even win his home state of Florida in a primary, Ed Baker, an independent from Oregon that most people aren't familiar with, doesn't have a shot. But God bless him for trying. And like I said, I definitely enjoyed my discussion with him. So take a listen to that. That is up and available at ipmnation.com/MCU live. You can get the podcast. You can stream it or download it or whatever you want to do with it. But speaking of Marco Rubio, trying to do better with my segues. Marco Rubio announcing tonight. Actually, in fact, I heard his speech while I was in the Jeep coming home from another show, a taping of another show that I do called Local Outbreak. I was listening, and I got to hear his concession speech. He announced that he was getting out, suspending his campaign, and because he got pretty well clobbered in Florida. I've been saying for a while that, Rubio was probably a bad bet, him staying in, trying to win Florida, because if he lost, I mean, that's kind of humiliating. He can't even win in his home state. You know what I mean? That's pretty rough. And like I've been saying, at this point, Marco Rubio, at a certain point, was no longer running for president in 2016. He's been running for president for a bit now in 2020 or 2024. Although there is heavy speculation that he's actually going to run for governor of Florida. So Rick Scott is in there now. I don't know. I think they have term limits in Florida on the governorship. I'm not positive about that. So there may be an opportunity there when Rick Scott's current term is up. Maybe getting some executive experience would help Rubio in the future. I mean, it may just be that he was just too young. He's 44 years old, and he looks even younger. And, not a lot of legislative accomplishments either necessarily in the Senate. So, it probably would have been better if he'd gotten out before Florida, but I don't know if in the future, again, he's a young man with a long political life, a long political future ahead of him. He'll have more opportunities to run for president, certainly. We'll see if he does it, but he'll certainly have more opportunities. And maybe this loss in Florida will be forgotten. John Kasich, on the other hand, did manage to win in Ohio, which I was glad to see. It's Kasich's first, and it'll probably be his only win. But as I've said all along, I find him to be the least repulsive of the current field of Republicans, and good to see him win one. I would have felt really badly for him, but I felt a little badly for Rubio. I mean, I don't care for him much, but it's got to hurt. Good concession speech, though. He took some shots at Trump, not directly, never mentioned him by name. But he did talk about divisive campaigning and, kind of people against each other. And there was a lot of code in Marco Rubio's concession speech tonight that was clearly directed at Trump. But where do we go from here? Well, we'll explore that a little bit when we come back. More Unleashed coming up. Don't go away.
The Real Conscious Connection. Ohm Times Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Ohm Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Ohm Times endeavor. Host your show with Ohm Times Radio Network.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at Ohm Times Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.ohmtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. Ohm Times Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
IPMNation.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton, Unleashed. It's a little K Daver for you there. His new single with the K Daver with the Axe Murder Boys, appearing on that track with him. Give Yourself to Me. That's from his new album. It's going to be coming up in actually next month. Coming out, Black Angels, White Devils. K Daver has a new show on IPM Nation called Unstable Mind of K Daver. And it's already gained a quick following, only a couple of episodes in. So good for him. And I love that track. It gets stuck in my head. Let's see. So where do we go from here? Well, there's an article up on HuffPost that says the Stop Trump movement got new life in Ohio. A floor fight in Cleveland just got a lot more likely. Yeah, it's kind of interesting that, and I'm sure John Kasich likes this, that, the Republican convention is going to be in John Kasich's home state of Ohio. Not surprised, by the way, that he was able to eke out a win there because, he's fairly popular in his home state. I don't get the impression from what we saw tonight that Marco Rubio is necessarily very popular in Florida. But I mean, he couldn't even get the Florida governor to endorse him, Rick Scott. I don't think Jeb ever endorsed him, if I'm not mistaken. So, but let's see what this says, because it really is. I still am incredibly skeptical about a contested convention, because I just think that as much as it would be great to see, because it would be so fascinating, but the problem is it's going to, if they don't figure out a way to just rally around Trump, who is going to be the nominee, they really run the risk of just doing horribly all the way down the ticket in 2016. So I don't know. I mean, there's so much that can go wrong, including, by the way, apparently there are establishment conservatives who are still plotting a potential a potential third party run of some candidate. So in other words, let Trump have the Republican nomination and we'll just go do our own thing. Boy, I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, no matter what, they're going to split the vote. What they really are going to need to do is they're just going to have to lean into it and try to make the best of it with Trump. I mean, that's the smart play. Anything else is just tantamount to handing the election to Hillary Clinton. But let's see. Okay, so on HuffPost, it says the Stop Trump movement got new life in Ohio. It says here, Donald Trump continued to beat the GOP field on Tuesday night, winning contests in Florida, North Carolina, and Illinois, but dropping Ohio to John Kasich and struggling against Ted Cruz in Missouri. Yeah, as I get on the air tonight, I still haven't seen a final decision in Missouri. The loss in Ohio makes it extremely difficult. Trump will need some 60% of the delegates left to get the 1,237 delegates he needs to lock up the nomination without a floor fight in Cleveland, which will host the Republican convention in July. And that makes stopping Trump all the more doable. A handful of states, including delegate-rich New Jersey, have winner-take-all primaries, and others like New York award most of their delegates to the winner. They will help get Trump where he needs to be, but it will still be a tall order after Ohio. If Trump has a nomination wrested from him, it will not be because he lacks support, but rather that he has engendered too much opposition. He has virtually swept the South, won every state in the Midwest, save for Minnesota and Ohio, where he was beaten by the popular governor, and even ran away with Massachusetts and New Hampshire. If he ultimately loses, it will be because enough Republicans came to believe that Trump had gone beyond the pale of American politics, or perhaps more pragmatically, that he couldn't win in a general election. Earlier Tuesday, the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, a Kentucky Republican with a finely tuned political antenna, told reporters in the Capitol, unprompted, that he had just spoken with the GOP frontrunner. Quote, Donald Trump called this morning and we had a good conversation. I took the opportunity to recommend to him that no matter who may be triggering these violent expressions or conflict that we've seen at some of these rallies, it might be a good idea to condemn that and discourage it, no matter what the source of it is, unquote. Little side note here. Trump hasn't really done that. He almost seems to be sort of reveling in it. That I would suggest is dangerous because it's kind of encouraging that kind of thing. And Trump, look, I mean, everything that we've seen from Trump would indicate he's not going to say anything to condemn or discourage the violence. He's apparently fine with it. Let's see. The source is not a mystery. At a November rally, Trump said of a black protester who'd been beaten, quote, Maybe he should have been roughed up because it was absolutely disgusting what he was doing, unquote. In February, he told his supporters out at a rally, quote, if you see somebody who's getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously, I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees. I promise, unquote. That is just, to call it reckless and irresponsible really isn't saying enough. Let's see. Later that month at another rally, Trump talked about a protester being taken out on a stretcher and said, quote, I'd like to punch him in the face, unquote. That's great. Just this month, as a protester was being taken out, Trump said, quote, try not to hurt him. If you do, I'll defend you in court. Don't worry, unquote. He has since floated the idea of paying the legal fees of a man arrested for sucker punching a black man at a rally in Fayetteville, North Carolina. On Tuesday night, he easily won the state, and his supporters have only rallied to him in the wake of the violence. Of course. Stopping Trump in Ohio has been an essential part of the GOP's effort to block him from the nomination. But there are no good options ahead for Republicans, as underscored by Tuesday's exit surveys. By the way, if you remember Romney's big speech, that was part of what he said. He said, you know, if you're in Florida, vote for Rubio. If you're in Ohio, vote for Kasich. And if you're in some other state, vote for Ted Cruz, who didn't win anything today, by the way. Let's see. Quote, the only person I know I'm not going to vote for is Hillary Clinton. Call me after our convention, and I may add to that list, unquote, said Senator Lindsey Graham on Tuesday, talking to reporters, condemning his own party for allowing Trump to get this far. Quote, our party's leadership's been light on Trump. Now everybody's up in their game. Is it too little too late? I don't know, unquote. Princeton professor Sam Wang calculated the effect of the race of Trump winning or losing Ohio. The results show that if everyone else stays in the race, Trump fares better, paradoxically, with an Ohio loss. But even under that unlikely scenario, impossible now that Rubio has officially quit, he still winds up short of the majority he'd need for the nomination. PredictWise, which aggregates betting markets for politics and other topics, shows that bettors think there's about a 50-50 chance of the Republican convention needing 2 or more votes to select a nominee. Trump's stronger than expected performance in Illinois and Missouri may make up some of the delegates he's losing in Ohio. There's more to this if you want to read the whole thing. It's up on HuffPost, but you know, Trump himself had said at one point, you know, a bit self-servingly, but when talking to someone in the media, he said, you know, well, regardless of who does or doesn't make it to 1237, I think that whoever has the most delegates simply should be the nominee. And I don't disagree with that. Obviously, look, the reason this is done the way it is you know, to prevent, in theory, to prevent somebody like Donald Trump from getting to the nomination, right? It's a fail-safe. But the problem is, again, if you do this, if you find a way to take the nomination away from him at the convention, you are going to alienate, really, you're going to anger so many Trump voters, so many Trump supporters who are going to feel disenfranchised. You know, we're already seeing that with the Democrats. You've got, you know, Hillary Clinton, you know, no matter, and she had a very good night, but, you know, somehow even when she loses, she ends up with more delegates because of the super delegates and the manipulation there. You know, and people are frustrated by that. Bernie voters are frustrated. They feel like this is already being stolen from them. You know, like I said, it's like, you know, your vote counts except when it doesn't. And how are these Republicans going to feel when, you know, these Republicans who supported Trump, who voted for him, when they find a way to get the nomination away from him at the convention? They're going to feel disenfranchised. They're going to be angry. They're going to be very angry. And it's really put the Republicans in a no-win situation. There's an article on here on HuffPost, which we'll look at when we get back, says the anti-Trump cavalry arrived
contains explicit
just
language.
too late and without the thickest checkbook.
Welcome back to Candidate
Newt
Confessional,
Gingrich
the podcast
faced more
that everybody,
pushback
and by
at the
everybody
finish
I
line
mean
in
my
Florida.
immediate family, is listening to. I'm Sam Stein.
And I'm Jason Church.
Yeah,
And Jason,
they're
on this episode, I want to ask a
they're
question.
plotting
How do you
and they're
leave
gonna
the
they're
thing
gonna
that
do
you
what
love?
they
How do
can,
you
but
retire
the
gracefully?
Are you trying
worst
to
thing
tell
is,
me something, Sam?
No.
too, you know,
I'm
even
talking
if
about
they
people like
even if they
Muhammad
seal this
Ali,
away from
Michael
Trump,
Jordan,
well,
Brett
who's
Favre,
the next
athletes that played
who
well
has
past
the
their
most
prime and had
delegates
trouble leaving the stage.
for the
It's easy to
Republicans
see
after
why, 'cause
Trump?
work can
Ted
become an
Cruz.
obsession, and it can really
And
form
a lot
who
of
we are as people, our
Republicans
identities.
who don't
Exactly. Who wants
necessarily
to
have any
retire
problem
to
with Trump
Oprah
hate Ted
specials in the corporate
Cruz.
lecture circuit.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of
specials
friends.
aren't
He
so
certainly
bad, but
doesn't
that
have a
brings
lot
us
of
to
friends in
this
the
week's
Senate.
Stuffed French toast.
Back
And
to this
he
week's episode. We
stands
talked to
no
a
more
Washington
chance of
legend
beating
who
Hillary
came
than
out
Trump
of retirement
does.
to run for president in 2012.
What a
One,
mess.
former House Speaker
It's
Newt
fun,
Gingrich.
though.
His heyday is
So
20
we'll
years ago in
we'll look at
94.
that a little
Exactly. He
bit
led the
a little bit
Republican
further.
takeover of
We'll
the
look
House
at
of
what these
Representatives
establishment
after 40 years
Republicans
in
are
the
trying to
wilderness.
do.
And at the time, he came to
when we come
define
back, we're,
conservatism. I mean,
we're up
he
against
had the
another
contract
break,
with
but-
America.
Exactly, and he also did budget battles with Bill Clinton.
Hey.
He led the impeachment hearings with Monica Lewinsky.
Oh.
And then it all went away. He was the victim of an insurrection in his own party.
Sorry, I didn't know that other audio was playing. That was weird. All right, we'll be right back. Don't go away.
The Real Conscious Connection. Ohm Times Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Ohm Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Ohm Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on Ohm Times Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Join Elliot Jollish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jollish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jollish Hour. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're only halfway done. It's another big Tuesday. And, of course, we're live on IPM Nation 2 and OTR FM. And this is an article on Politico. This is what I was talking about. It says here, top conservatives gather to plot third-party run against Trump. Can you believe this? This is amazing. By the way, I'm not trying to ignore, I should just say before we go any further, I'm not trying to ignore the Democrats tonight. I mean, you know, Hillary Clinton had a good night. She won Ohio, which actually Bernie was hoping to win after he picked up that win in Michigan. Hillary had a very good night. She continues to be ahead in delegates. Well, of course, she'd be ahead in delegates no matter what, the way they've manipulated that. But it's just not as interesting. I mean, that's, we know Hillary's going to be the nominee. There's not going to be a contested convention for the Democrats. But for the Republicans, it's getting just more and more interesting. It's wild. So, it says here, according to Politico, this one up tonight, top conservatives gather to plot third-party run against Trump. The meeting is scheduled for 2 days after tonight's primaries in what many Republican operatives believe will determine whether Trump is on an unstoppable march to the nomination. 3 influential leaders of the conservative movement have summoned other top conservatives for a closed-door meeting Thursday in Washington, D.C., to talk about how to stop Donald Trump and, should he become the Republican nominee, how to run a third-party true conservative challenger in the fall. Wow. The organizers of the meeting include Bill Witcherman, who was President George W. Bush's liaison to the conservative movement, Bob Fisher, a South Dakota businessman and longtime conservative convener, and Eric Erickson, that's a name I've heard, the outspoken Trump opponent and conservative activist who founded RedState.com. Quote, please join other conservative leaders to strategize how to defeat Donald Trump for the Republican nomination, unquote. The 3 wrote in an invitation obtained by Politico that recently went out to conservative leaders. Quote, and if he is the Republican nominee for president, to offer a true conservative candidate in the general election. The meeting is scheduled for Thursday, 2 days after the winner-take-all Florida and Ohio vote, in what many Republican operatives believe will determine whether Trump is on an unstoppable march to the nomination or is likely to stall out short of the 1,237 delegates he needs. One person involved in the gathering described it as in the embryonic stages. This person said, quote, it's not like there's a royal grand plan that's going to be unfurled. People aren't giving up on the Republican Party yet, unquote. Embryonic stages. Well, they better hurry the hell up. The clock is ticking on this. Still, Witcherman, Fisher, and Erickson represent 3 bold-faced names to host such a gathering. All 3 have deep ties to the social conservative movement, which Ted Cruz has tried to unite behind his candidacy. Witcherman, in addition to his top aide for Bush, served as a senior advisor to Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist. Wow, Bill Frist. That's a name I haven't heard in a while. He now works for Covington, a law firm in Washington, D.C. Fisher, in 2012, helped bring together a group of more than 200 conservatives from across the country to unite around Rick Santorum's candidacy. An event in Houston he put together raised $1.8 million in a day. And Erickson, who has sparred publicly with Trump for months online and on his radio show, has previously said, quote, I will not be voting for Donald Trump at all, ever, unquote. Other GOP donors who are interested in exploring the possibility of challenging Trump recently commissioned a study on the feasibility of launching a last-minute independent bid. Trump dominates the GOP delegate count, with nearly half of the states already voting in the Republican presidential primary. According to Politico's calculations, he would need to amass slightly more than 50% of the remaining delegates to secure the nomination outright. Is this actually going anywhere? The risk is huge. If they do this, let's suppose that that they decide to try to mount some sort of third-party bid. They would be doing it specifically to try to save the party in the long term while conceding, try to save the party in the long term as they see it or as they wish it to be, conceding the 2016 election to whoever the Democratic nominee is. Because obviously if they do this, they're going to split the vote. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to split the vote and throw the election to the other side. I remember the last time Ralph Nader ran for president, seen on television on Bill Maher's Real Time with Bill Maher. I think that was the show he was doing at the time. HBO. I remember Bill Maher. What's his name? I just said his name. The consumer advocate there, Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader was, because he ran independent a few times, and he was a guest on there. And I remember it was kind of funny, but Bill Maher and the director, Michael Moore, getting down on their hands and knees and begging him not to run because they were so afraid that he would throw the election to the Republican nominee. Some people blame Ralph Nader, by the way, for Al Gore losing in 2000. But I mean, they would do this knowing full well they're going to throw the election to whoever the Democratic nominee is. But they must believe that they're going to be doing something positive for the party in the long term. So it'll be fascinating to see if they do this. I don't believe they will. I'm skeptical, but it will be very interesting to see. Trump now saying, and by the way, Trump understands the danger clearly, because he is now saying we have to bring the party together. This is on HuffPost. It says we have to bring the party together. The message is at odds with how the candidate has run his campaign. This might be part of his pivot in terms of a general election campaign. It says here, Donald Trump addressed friends and supporters on Tuesday night from the ballroom of his Mar-a-Lago hotel. Trying to scroll back up. In Palm Beach, Florida, after winning primary contests in Florida, North Carolina, and Illinois. Trump stressed the need for unity within the GOP, a message that is at odds with most of the insulting personal attacks he has thrown to fellow Republicans throughout his campaign. Trump said, quote, "The fact is, we have to bring our party together. We have something happening that actually makes the Republican Party probably the biggest political story anywhere in the world," unquote. While that may be true, many GOP leaders likely wish the party's internal divisions weren't such a big story. Trump repeated many of the same points he has made during many other speeches. He blamed gridlock in Congress for the problem of corporate inversions, insisting that you, quote, could make a deal on that in 10 minutes if you knew what you're doing, unquote. Of course, that's Trump's answer to everything. Make a deal. I'll make better deals. He may be right on that in some cases, but he also boasted of having spoken to House Speaker Paul Ryan and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, with whom he said he'd had a great conversation. Earlier in the day, McConnell told reporters he used the chance to tell Trump to condemn the violence that has come to characterize the reality TV star's political rallies. Trump said of his supporters during the speech, quote, "They're not angry people, but they want to see the country properly run," unquote. I think some of these people are pretty angry. I think they enjoy Trump's anger. I think that's why they're with him. During his speech, Trump praised the work of Lewandowski and Press Secretary Hope Hicks. Good job, Corey. Good job, Trump said. Midway through his speech, Trump applauded Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who suspended his presidential campaign earlier in the night after losing the primary in his home state to Trump. Trump said of Rubio, quote, "He's tough, he's smart, and he's got a great future," unquote. That's a different tone from calling him Little Marco. I guess he doesn't want to kick him while he's down. That's good. As he has during past rallies, Trump portrayed himself as a victim. Oh, here we go. As a victim of lies, deceit, viciousness, and disgusting reporters. He did not take questions despite having billed the event as a press conference. Trump's dominance in Florida's winner-take-all GOP primary means real estate mogul walks away with all of the state's 99 delegates. The candidate also has won his party's primaries in North Carolina, which awards 72 delegates proportionally, and Illinois, where he nabbed 24 delegates. But it was not a perfect night for Trump. Ohio Governor John Kasich defeated him in the Buckeye State, notching its 66 delegates. Yeah, by the way, that is a winner-take-all state, Ohio. So even though, I mean, it's not like Kasich won with an overwhelming victory, and we still don't know, I guess, as I'm on the air live tonight, what the final verdict is in Missouri. I'm going to type it in here on Google actually to see. Last I knew, there was no winner yet declared. And there still is not. Wow, it's still tight. 52 delegates at stake. This is, let's see, this was last updated, just a couple minutes ago, 11:42 p.m. With this is down to the wire. Geez, with 91% reporting, which typically when you're at 91% reporting, you know who's going to win this thing. But in Missouri, Trump is at 41.2%. Ted Cruz is at an even 41%. So Ted Cruz, 0.2% behind Donald Trump in Missouri. By the way, if you're curious, Kasich is at 9.5 and Rubio is at 5.9. That is stunningly close. I mean, we might not, I guess technically, I mean, it'll be midnight when we're wrapping up the live show. We're not going to know by midnight. I mean, with it being this close, they're going to have to get to something like 98% reporting before they can project a winner on this one. So I don't know about Missouri. There's 52 delegates at stake. I don't know. I don't remember if that's a winner take all state. By the way, and as far as the Democrats, Bernie Sanders is at 50.3, Hillary at 48.6. So Sanders a little bit ahead of Hillary in Missouri. That surprises me. I would have expected Missouri to go for Hillary. That part of the country is not a strength for Bernie Sanders, but he may eke out a victory there. 71 delegates up for grabs. We'll be right back.
The Real Conscious Connection. Ohm Times Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Ohm Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Ohm Times endeavor. Host your show with Ohm Times Radio Network.
Matt Connarton here. Join Jen Coffey and I twice a week for Matt Connarton Unleashed, a political talk show that's a little different than what you're used to. No liberal or conservative agenda here, just an honest dialogue about truth and how things really work in the world of politics. Matt Connarton Unleashed, every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on Ohm Times Radio.
Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to better connect with the important people in your life? Do you want to enrich your relationships? If so, join me, Matthew Cooper, on the Positive Control System Show every Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Ohm Times Radio. I'll meet you there.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. As we cruise into our final segment tonight. Don't forget, of course, you can hear the show 5 nights a week, Monday through Friday, on IPM Nation 2 on the IPM Nation live station. And, of course, Tuesdays and Thursday nights, we are also on OTR FM, the premium channel, on the Ohm Times Radio Network, and the television edition of Unleashed, of course, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. You can watch that on IPM Nation. My guest this week on the television edition, one of the newest members of the IPM Nation family, Michael Gill. He is the host of a great program called State of Corruption, which is live on Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern on IPM Nation 1. And by the way, I know we have a lot of listeners in Manchester, New Hampshire, because that's our home base at IPM Nation. It's where we broadcast from. And in case you didn't know, if you are a Manchester resident, you may have seen the big. It's on the Aspen Dental Building on South Willow Street, right where the interchange is with I-293 by the mall. And that big animated, I don't know what you call it, an animated billboard. It's like a big billboard, but it's got video footage on it, and it changes out every few weeks, but it addresses some of the people that Mike Gill accuses in terms of being corrupt, and that is Mike Gill owns that. That's he pays for that billboard, and it's something to look at if you're sitting at a red light there at that very, very busy intersection on South Willow Street. It was censored recently. It said it included the word shitheads for some of these people whom he accuses of being corrupt, and apparently it was censored. It had said it for a while, and then I don't know. I'll get the full story tomorrow, but I guess somebody felt that was not appropriate in the public square. That word, it's interesting. You ever think about how interesting it is how there's this weird, I guess it's part of the social compact. There's this weird sort of tacit, unspoken thing where we just all collectively as a society have kind of agreed that there are certain words that you're not supposed to say in front of certain people and in certain circumstances. These words, profanity, swear words, whatever you want to call it, these words are special for some reason, and they have these special rules applied to them, and you can't say them on television, and you can't say them in terrestrial radio, on AM or FM. You can say them online, of course. Online is uncensored. Although I won't use the word again because on Ohm Times they would prefer that that we not use a bunch of profanity, but it's just kind of interesting. It's kind of an interesting facet of human existence that we have certain words that we all just agree tacitly that are bad words. Of course, Donald Trump violates those rules at some of his rallies. But speaking of which, okay, so before we wrap up tonight, I do love rightwingwatch.org, and I try to feature something from rightwingwatch.org on Every Unleashed, and this jumped out at me. Jerry Falwell Jr. says Donald Trump is America's King David. Let's look at this, shall we? Again, this is on rightwingwatch.org, a great website. In an interview with Liberty University's student newspaper last week, the school's president, Jerry Falwell Jr., defended his endorsement of Donald Trump. Falwell, who has compared Trump to Jesus Christ and Martin Luther King Jr., said that conservative Christians who oppose the candidate should remember that, quote, God called King David a man after God's own heart, even though he was an adulterer and a murderer, unquote. Okay, we're only 2 paragraphs into this article, and this has already gone off the rails, and it's just so completely bizarre. I'm going to read that. I'm going to read that second paragraph to you again. I'm not making this up. Falwell, who has compared Trump to Jesus Christ and Martin Luther King Jr., said that conservative Christians who oppose the candidate should remember that, quote, God called King David a man after God's own heart, even though he was an adulterer and a murderer, unquote. There is just so much bizarreness in that. it's pretty bizarre that Falwell is using that as a justification for why conservative Christians should support Trump. But then this analogy he makes, and look, I'm no theologian, but I'm reading that and I'm imagining, God sitting up there in heaven on his big golden throne or whatever, looking down going, man, that King David, he gets away with everything. I'll tell you what, I'll be damned, that guy. That guy's got something going on. He's making the most of his weekend, that's for sure. I like him. I know. I should be thinking about sending him to hell when he dies because he's pretty sinful, but there's just something about him. He's a lovable rogue. I kind of dig that guy. He's got that swagger. So strange. All right, well, I'm going to try to get past that initial strangeness and read the rest of this. He also noted that it, quote, is sad to see Christians attacking other Christians because they don't support the same candidate or the candidate who they believe is the most righteous, unquote. Of course, attacking others for being phony Christians for not supporting their candidate of choice has been standard practice for the modern religious right movement that was in part founded by his father. Falwell recounted how he was very impressed by the presidential candidate's 757, gushing over how Trump served them Wendy's cheeseburgers and put a video of an Elton John concert on the television. Okay. You know what? I kind of had an epiphany recently that maybe this is a good time to share this. If you're a regular listener, you've often heard me talk about how a lot of Christians don't practice true Christianity. They practice what I call ironic Christianity, which is, these Christians who try to have they profess to be Christians and they go through the motions of Christianity while actively trying to have as little as possible to do with anything Christ actually said. I've just kind of come to the conclusion that there just really is no such thing as Christianity. It's a fantasy. It's a fallacy because there really are no Christians. Look, I mean, what did Gandhi say? Stephen James Blake, who the late, great Stephen James Blake, who had one of the original political talk shows on IPM Nation, used to paraphrase Gandhi as saying, Christianity is a great idea. I wish somebody would try it. I think what Gandhi actually said was something like, it's not that I don't like your Christ. I like your Christ. It's your Christians that I don't like because they are so unlike your Christ. Even the people who try to present themselves as the most devout of Christians will violate what I understand to be the basic tenets of Christianity. Christians, they tend to be very pro-death penalty, even though it says in the Bible, thou shalt not kill. They tend to be very pro-war, even though it says in the Bible, thou shalt not kill. That's one of the 10 commandments, by the way, thou shalt not kill. I thought that was a pretty big deal. I think Jesus also said something about turning the other cheek, which makes it even that much more difficult to justify all the killing that Christians are very enthusiastic about, whether it be through war or the death penalty. Even the most basic stuff, Christians are just completely uninterested in, like thou shalt not kill, like turning the other cheek, like not judging others, And believe me, talk to anyone who calls himself a Christian. If they're a Republican, if they're a Democrat, this particular thing wouldn't happen. But any Christian who's a Republican, ask them what they think about Barack Obama, and you'll get a range of insults and how and judgment about Barack Obama and what a terrible person he is. Would Christ approve of that, of speaking so horribly about another human being, even if you don't agree with that person? Christians don't even bother to fake the most basic stuff about Christianity. The most basic, obvious stuff, they don't even bother to try to fake it. They ignore everything that is inconvenient to them and hyper-focus on one very specific thing. One very, very specific thing that they are so hyper-focused on while they ignore everything else. And what's that? That's right. An obscure passage in the Old Testament, something about man shall not lay with another man or something. So they totally hyper-focus on that. They are obsessed with that. And they ignore everything else. And they call themselves Christians. I've just kind of come to the conclusion it's not a matter of you've got real Christians and then you've got the ironic Christians that I talk about. There just are no Christians. There is no such thing as Christianity because nobody who claims to participate in it is actually interested in it. And I'm sure somebody listening to this, some theologian might hear this and go, well, Matt doesn't understand the intricacies and blah, blah, blah. Hey, look, it's pretty simple and cut and dry to you people when you want to make a point about how gay people are going to hell because of something in the Old Testament. You know, the 10 Commandments are pretty easy to hold up when you want to condemn an adulterer. Oh, it says, you know, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Bad, bad. You know, but thou shalt not kill. Y'all just don't get it, do you? That's the epiphany I've had about it. There just is no such thing as Christianity. It literally does not